You're with Patrick Henningsen on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We're in the final segment of the final hour here on this live broadcast. I'm Patrick Henningsen. Welcome back to TNT, today's News Talk. I want to go over right now back to the Middle East, to the Arabian Peninsula. Latest news from Yemen. Yemen has announced it's expanding its enforcement of its own sanctions against the state of Israel for the genocide in Gaza. They would be not only patrolling the waters in the Bab el-Mandeb Straits and the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, but also the Mediterranean Sea. This could be absolutely extraordinary if this plays out. I want to bring award-winning journalist Yousef Mawry onto the line right now from Yemen. Yousef, thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here, Patrick.
Yousef, a lot of us were taken aback and a little bit shocked when we saw this announcement earlier this week. What do you make of this, and what are the possibilities of this happening going forward?
I'd say the possibilities of this going forward and continuing to escalate is very, very high, because as we see, the Israeli entity continues its genocide. It continues to expand its genocide. They don't really seem to be concerned about global condemnation. They don't seem to really be concerned about being held accountable by the International Criminal Court, by the United Nations. The only thing Israel really understands is brute military force. And I think that's the strategy and that's the policy that Yemen has adopted. In fact, Muhammad Ali al-Houthi, a member of the Houthi family, a prominent Yemeni politician, he mentioned on October 10, that Yemen is adopting a policy that will deal with Israel in the same way that Israel deals with the Palestinians. And he mentioned that Israel bombs Gaza, Yemen will bomb the Israeli entity. The Israeli entity besieges Gaza, imposes a blockade. Yemen will also impose a blockade. This is in the early stages of the conflict. But here's a shocker. I mean, I think even if October 7 never happened, Yemen's Ansar movement has always had the intention of eventually declaring war against the so-called State of Israel, because from Ansar Allah's ideological political position, Israel is an occupying military force that needs to be reversed. Palestine needs to return to its rightful owners, which is the Palestinians. And this is actually in the group's ideological belief. It's in their political manifesto. I wrote an article back in 2014 where I mentioned, upon my visit to the North Province of Sada, which was where the Ansar Allah Houthis were stationed before they took over the Yemeni capital. I came back from that journey and I mentioned that, this is a group they're not only going to take over the Yemeni capital, they're not only going to take over Yemen, but they have ambitions to expand their political ideology beyond borders in terms of what we're mainly talking about, the occupying military force of Israel. Because when I was inside that, this was in 2013, 2014, the prominent members that I spoke with back then, and this was a small group at the time, they had Palestine as their main mission. They had, liberating the land of Palestine, liberating the land of Al-Aqsa as their primary goal in order to, bring an end to over 75 years of brute, unjustified, illegal Zionist military operations, according to the Ansar Allah Houthis. To address your question with the operations in the Mediterranean Sea, I wasn't really shocked about this, because I think all of their military actions since October 7 have been very shocking to the rest of the world. I don't think anybody was expecting Yemen's Ansar Allah movement to basically blacklist U.S., British, Israeli ships from the Red Sea, from the Arabian Sea to the Gulf of Aden to the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea. And the reason why these military actions, the escalation from Yemen's part was undertaken and successfully undertaken, was because they've been planning this from even before October 7, because according to their political view, the U.S., the British Empire, the Zionist entity of State of Israel, according to Yemenis, according to the Ansar Allah movement, these are illegal military forces that need to be cut off from their intervention in the Middle East. And that starts with the 75 years of military occupation over the land of Palestine, not just by Israel, but by the Western world as well. That also includes ridding the Middle East from U.S. and British military bases, which have served the purpose of only stirring the entire region into chaos and instability. I think it's only natural when you look at a grassroots movement sincere to its nation and sincere to its people to be established upon the principles of resolving the issues that are plaguing the people, that are plaguing its people, and removing those obstacles and those challenges, internal or external, that are stirring the people into being in a state of poverty, chaos, unemployment rates, you name it. Yemen is considered the poorest country in the world. So I think any form of sincere government that rules over Yemen, they have to be held accountable to the Yemeni people and bring into effect the policies, the rules, laws, and regulations, form of government that the people want enacted. And it's this is the main pillar of democracy that we don't really see in the Middle East. We don't even see it in the West anymore, obviously. So yeah, just to give you that little bit of background.
And just, I know Iran has similar sort of constitutional provision for if there is oppression, if there is apartheid anywhere in the world, it's duty bound as a government, as a nation, to do everything it can to ameliorate that situation, whatever it takes, in fact. So it seems Yemen has similar conviction that's kind of baked into its own constitution with Ansar Allah. But on the tactical side, on the strategic side, has Yemen developed capabilities that will allow it to project its enforcement of these international principles, as you've just laid out, into the Mediterranean area? Because obviously this is somewhat different than down where the Bab el-Mandeb Straits are, for instance. What are your thoughts on that going forward?
We've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to identifying, recognizing, and witnessing the military capability that's within the possession of Yemen's Ansar Allah movement. This is a group unlike any other kind. To be honest with you, they've even put pressure on other members of the axis of resistance to step up their game and to play a more assertive role in trying to bring an end to the genocide. And I think this is reflected in the Sayyid Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi, the Ansar Allah leader, in his latest speeches, where he mentioned that Yemen is not only going to surprise its enemies, it's also going to surprise its allies as well. I think what that speaks to is the confidence in the military development and manufacturing of weapons that are able to hit not just the Mediterranean Sea, but beyond the Mediterranean Sea. The statement, when Ansar Allah says they will begin to target ships in the Mediterranean Sea, and then they follow it with another address where they mention, to clarify, what they really meant is they're going to attack any and all ships that have shipped, that have done any business with the Israeli entity. And that includes targets in the Mediterranean Sea. That includes targets, in the Red Sea, and obviously the territories that's already within their reach. But the reason why they mentioned the Mediterranean Sea is because of the key strategic position that it holds, not just for Palestine, but for Syria as well, for Russia. You have obviously the Strait of Hormuz, you have the Strait of Gibraltar. These are the straits that Ansar Allah is going to target. And guess what? Ships crossing the Strait of not the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of the Suez Canal, I should say, the Suez Canal. Ships crossing that narrow gap in the middle of the ocean. Those ships will be very easy to pick apart or to target, because you're talking about just the basic law of physics when they're crossing that long, narrow path through the Suez Canal and trying to make it to the Red Sea. It's a threat to not just Israeli-linked ships, British ships, or American ships, but any ships that do business with the state of Israel, any ships that ship, import, export, trade in any way, shape, or form with the state of, with the Israeli entity. And I think what that speaks to is that genocide, first of all, it's highlighting the fact that every country should take a stance against the genocide. And while Israel is committing the genocide, it is illegal, according to international law, according to Geneva Conventions, to continue to support such an entity. So Ansar Allah, they feel obliged, and they have no problem with playing a leading role and being at the vanguard of this, spearheading, if you will, this military campaign against the state of Israel. Just to add to that, the Ansar Allah leader, he mentioned, and this is very interesting, he mentioned that even if Hamas was to agree to a ceasefire, as far as Yemen is concerned, Israel will still be held accountable for not just the genocide that it has committed over the past 8 months, but for 75 years of military occupation. This is why, Patrick, this is why the US, the British, the Israeli entity, and all of its allies, they will declare war against Yemen's Ansar Allah, because this is a movement that will not tolerate or accept, compromise the current reality of Israel continuing to commit genocide and continuing to occupy Palestine. We often hear Israeli politicians or pundits, go on air and say they can't make peace with Hamas because Hamas wants to wipe off Israel. According to international law, Israel is an occupying illegal military force. And according to international law, any land, any group of people whose land, country is being occupied, they have the right to resist.
This is it. This is true under international law. Yemen has surprised everybody already and may continue to surprise the world in what it's prepared to do to stop the bloodshed in Gaza. Yousef Mawry, award-winning journalist from Yemen, thank you for joining us on TNT this week.
Anytime. Thank you.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Big thank you to Sam Husseini, also Basil Valentine in the first hour. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for a fantastic program today. Appreciate you having us with you. And also tomorrow, Wednesday, expect more of the same. I'm Patrick Henningsen signing out. Take care, everybody.